Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast. Our primary objective is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never quit. The reality of life is simple. We all fall. We all fail. At times, we get knocked down. The question is, do we get back up? Are we stronger? Are we better prepared to attain the maximum of our potential? Thank you for joining our No Quit tribe. As you go for your greatness today, never quit. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. Welcome to episode number 498 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is decisions. Our quote of the day comes to us from Eric Thomas. Champions make different types of decisions. If you have not gotten your ticket for the Accountability Community's second event, Finish Strong, we encourage you to do so. This event will be in Norwalk, Connecticut on Tuesday, October 22nd, beginning at 5 p.m. If you are looking to finish your 2024 off strong so you can begin 2025 on fire, this is the event for you. So shoot me a message if you have any questions or if you'd like to be a sponsor. You can reach me at chris@noquitliving.com. We hope to see you on the 22nd. I met our guest back in July, and I knew I had to get him on the show. We had some scheduling conflicts on both of our ends, but we are finally able to make it happen. I know you're going to appreciate what Mitchell Pehlke has to say. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Mitchell, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Oh, Chris, thank you. I'm excited to be here. I feel like I can resonate with the name. I just feel like a lot of people you have on can too, so I'm excited to dive in with you.
I appreciate it. And first question I ask everybody, and I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Are you ready to positively impact at least one person today?
Yes, I am. I feel like I do that in my content every day. And to top it off with you on a beautiful Friday, I'm excited.
I appreciate that. So the name, obviously, of our show and everything we do is No Quit Living and Team No Quit. And the question we always ask our guest is, if you have a no quit story or a time in your life, personally or professionally, where you could have given up or given in, but you didn't.
Yeah, an interesting one because it has to do a lot of my whole life and career. You know, growing up, lacrosse was everything. My dad played at UVA. My family played. Grew up in Northern Virginia. You know, I feel like the DMV is one of the hottest places to continue to excel in the sport. And right around middle school, sixth, seventh grade, I was playing way too much. You know, I just remember tournament after tournament. Fall ball into box, into spring ball, into summer ball, that I remember I was just getting burned out. And it was right around the time where recruiting was around the corner. And I was just like, I hate this sport right now. And I remember telling my dad, like, I really want to quit. Like, I want to quit. I remember telling him I want to quit and go to the NBA. Like, that was exactly what I said. As a 5'9" Italian, I was like, Pops, like, I'm done. Like, I want to try to go to the NBA. And luckily, as my pops is, of another 5'9" cat, was just like, hey, like, you need to take a break. You're not going to quit the sport. And, you know, in the back of his head, he's like, he's not making it to the NBA. So he played some travel basketball. Obviously kind of saw the writing on the wall there, got back to the sport, never obviously fully quit. And obviously, you know, I'm here now, and kind of a crazy story, but I think it just kind of showed me not the quit mentality, because I don't know if I really ever would have, but it really showed me like I need to check myself and not get burned out in something we love. And obviously see that with myself with working out or content and the things I do today.
I appreciate you touching on that. You touched on a couple things that I want to I call my dad Pops as well, which is awesome. I, you know, being 5'11", a little bit taller than you, I had those NBA aspirations, which didn't come to fruition. But you touched on something that I have to dissect with you for a second, because I think it's so important. And not only the work I do with college sports teams, obviously you being a former college athlete yourself as well, and what you do now with your content, the concept and the idea of burned out, or I'm at that point where I need to quote unquote quit, I think is very different. And I'm not going to speak for you, but growing up, there were more of the sports where you'd play a sport in the spring, in the fall, summer, and winter. Now, kids at like age 4, 5, and 6, parents are like, okay, you're going to be the next NBA, lacrosse, baseball, and it's just nonstop. And I think it's different today because you never have a break. And I think the idea of burning out versus quitting versus taking a break. So I want to get your 2 cents on that, because I think there's a very significant difference between being burned out, needing a break, taking a break, and then actually saying, you know what, I'm so burned out that I'm just never playing this sport or doing this instrument or anything ever again.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, I'll be honest, obviously in the summers, I'm essentially following the travel circuit. I'm following these parents, following these coaches, and really following these kids trying to commit to their dream schools. And the travel lacrosse scene right now is crazy, right? There's essentially from June 1st to, I think, Labor Day, there's probably a lacrosse event every single day. And I think it's just tough for kids right now to really say no, because they think they need to play to be able to chase their dreams. And I think that is some sort of the case, but not the case all the way through. And I think it's tough. That's why I love that the fact that the mental health and mental performance is becoming such a big thing. Because I mean, even when I was coming up, 8 years ago in the circuit, like, this was not getting talked about burnout and everything. It was just like, this is normal. And obviously playing lacrosse, feeling that, and now into the business world of what I'm doing with the brand of Mitchell Pehlke, I still have to check myself and not get burned out and learn how to take these breaks. And I think the hardest part has honestly been the last year and a half, where when I was at Ohio State, it was actually easier for me not to get burned out because of the fact that I legitimately had to put the camera and laptop down and go to practice. Practice was my mandatory break. I never missed a practice, and I always had a break, and it was great. But now that I'm graduated and doing this full time, there is no mandatory break. Yes, I'm still working out, but business is coming before working out now. And I feel like that's something I've had to really conquer in the past year and a half. But I'm glad the younger generation and people like our age, ourselves, are talking about this. So the younger generation is scrolling and finding these videos online to be able to help them on the come up, because I would have loved to really have these sort of conversations as a young buck.
I love that, and I think there's so much value in what you said, and I have a follow up question to that. My two kids who you met, Emily and Mason, this past summer, they play in the club lacrosse scene, and just talking to parents that are older than myself and obviously older than you, some of them have talked about how over the last 3 or 4 years, the number of tournaments and the just what they're doing is like quadrupled every single season. And I don't want to say in any way that, when you and I grew up, we had, one tournament and that was it. But to your point, you didn't say, basically there's a tournament or something every other week. You said every day up until Labor Day. And I think it's just getting so much that some of the parents and also the kids, it's almost like, all right, if I'm not doing everything all the time, we're going to be behind the eight ball. And I think the reality is you have to find that mix of doing enough, but not feeling you have to do everything every single day all the time.
Yeah, it's tough. And I think, 2016 rising ninth grade year for me was my big recruiting summer. And during that time, it was a tournament every weekend in June and July, somewhere in the DMV. If I had to go to New York, we had to go. But that was it. You had your weekend tournaments, no real prospect days. So essentially, Monday through Friday, you're living, a kid summer. Weekends, you're battling out with your travel ball team. And that was it. That's how it's always been until probably around 2018, 2019, right when I was really done with the travel scene, going to college. And it's crazy. And I talk to coaches, travel coaches, parents, and players all the time. And I think the bad part about it is there's no governing body where no one can really set rules in, right? We all say we're playing too much, but number one, obviously money is huge in the travel scene. Number two, there's no governing body. So there's no real rules that can be set in place. So people always ask me, what do you think is going to happen? I don't know. Like, I have no idea how this is going to change. Again, there's no one really making the rules. So if the big dogs in the industry continue to eat, like, it's going to continue to stay the same.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. Jay Billis, the ESPN analyst, he's a friend of mine, and I've been fortunate to have him on the show a couple times. And he's been saying this whole concept even before NIL was passed and the transfer portal, but he's been talking about having to have some type of rule or union or something where there are some parameters, because to your point, the money speaks. And if it becomes this wild, wild west, and there are some states now that have NIL opportunities down to high school, and as lacrosse continues to grow and build, not only with momentum, but interest, which obviously leads to more scholarships in colleges and then professional, both men's and women's now have professional organizations, which years ago they didn't. And I think the reality is, to your point, if there's not some type of system in place, it's literally going to be, the wild, wild west where you and I can have a tournament tomorrow. We could have one a month from now. And the only question is how many teams and players are we going to get? It's not going to be if we're going to get any, because we 100% will, because there are those parents and players that are going to feel that we need to be here. But to your point, and I appreciate your transparency, because I don't think a lot of people know exactly what's coming. And I always am a little bit skeptical when someone's like, oh, I know exactly what the next 5 years are going to be about, and I know exactly how they're going to transpire, because we don't know. That's the reality of it.
Yeah, it's tough. And it's one of those things. It's like it's trickled down on high school. Like, are we going to start seeing middle school? Like, and then is it going to just keep on going? Like, for me, I think the hard part is I just don't see a point of it stopping, again, because there's no one that can essentially enforce the rules. So I don't know. Time will always tell. And I'm excited to kind of see what path it really goes down.
You talked about your content, and for any of our listeners that don't fully know exactly what you do, I'd love if you could just briefly tell our listeners a little bit about what you are doing today, because I definitely have some follow-up questions to it. But I think in some ways, for the lacrosse listeners, obviously they know who you are and they probably follow your stuff. But for some of them that are not into lacrosse, maybe it'll be an introduction for them to follow you and some of the cool stuff that you're doing.
Yeah. So I feel like I essentially am a lacrosse entertainer. I make a lot of lacrosse related content away from the teaching side, again, from the entertainment side, doing documentaries, doing challenges, doing experiences. So everything on content, lacrosse related, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, selling merchandise, running camps, on-site appearances. And that's kind of the forte of what Mitch Pehlke does, and trying to continue with the no quit mindset.
I love that. And I have a follow-up question to that. I'm not sure exactly the date when you put it out, but you had a video recently about morning routine, which is one of the things that I'm very passionate about, but I find incredible value. I wanted to ask if you could maybe dissect a little bit, or just share a little bit of not only the behind the scenes, but what you learned, or maybe what you maybe thought you knew or didn't know when it comes to morning routine.
Yeah. So I would say, truthfully, right now, my morning routine has stayed pretty much the same, honestly, since I was in high school. It's been a little funky recently during the move, but I would say for me, the thing I learned during that video is everyone's obviously different, right? I think the biggest thing I took away with is successful people have the same habits. And I rarely meet somebody that goes to bed at 2 a.m. and sleeps till 10 and is very successful. And I think it's out there, right? I feel like I'm a big hip hop guy. You see that a lot in hip hop community, where Drake and some of these rappers are in the studio until 3 or 4, and obviously they're successful. It's different. I feel like from an athlete standpoint, and who I like to surround myself with, we all have the same habits, where a lot of it is we wake up between 5 and 6, and the first thing we do is immediately hit a workout. For me, that's been my routine. Wake up at 6 and get some peanut butter toast and some electrolytes in me, and then go hit a workout, come back, and then I'm filming or downloading my laptop until around 6 o'clock. And then I really try to shut it off. But some days and a lot of days I really don't. But I felt, for me in my morning routine, it's wake up at 6, get something in my stomach, go for a workout, whatever that is, lifts, runs, come back, shower up, and we're attacking it for the rest of the day. And try to plan calls for later in the day, post 2 o'clock, and to take a lot of those calls outside walking. I think that's been a big thing. And then I think, honestly, something within the past year I've tried to really incorporate into my life is eating whole foods. I've just felt eating what I put in my body helps me perform 10x. And getting on my own now and buying my own groceries, it's definitely, you don't love seeing that come out of the wallet, but I love the fact that I can pick my own foods, whole foods, eating that. don't feel tired in the middle of the day and just attacking the work.
I love that. Successful people have similar habits. A good friend of mine, she actually played college lacrosse as well. And I've talked about, and I say success leaves clues, and she takes it one step further and says that success leaves a roadmap. And I think sometimes when we veer off and try to do things our own way, I think that's when we kind of, fall off from where we want to go. And it's not that you want to in any way be a copycat and mimic everything about everybody. Like, you shouldn't want to be the next Mitchell Pehlke 2.0 and do the exact same thing, go to the same schools and tournaments the same days. But how do you learn from other people that are successful in an area that you want to be successful in? And I think in today's day and age, especially with social media and technology, it's so easy to get connected to people. The question is, are you willing to put in that time and take that consistent action so you can be the next fill in the blank? And I think the one thing I don't like as much with social media is people will look at other people's year 3, 4, 5, and 10 and say, well, I can do it. Yes, you can, but you can't compare your day 2 versus somebody's year 10 and say, well, how come I'm not there? Because you haven't put in the work before that. And that's the one thing that I think social media kind of taints the picture with, because a lot of people aren't putting in the backstory of, hey, I've been doing this now for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. And I love that about you when you gave your introduction about how long you've been doing this and how you've built it up to. You didn't start on a Monday and say, okay, I want to have X amount of followers. And then Tuesday morning you woke up and you're like, yeah, this is great. It was probably the opposite, where Monday you had, a couple followers, Tuesday maybe a couple more, maybe a couple less. And it wasn't, day, but it was consistency.
Yeah. No, it's truth. And I think, I totally agree with that. And I think for me, and just the way I look at life, I look at life as a business. The people I want in my life, it's a business decision, right? Like, I make every decision in my life with the business in mind, right? Like, who are my roommates going to be? How are they going to affect my time? What restaurants are we going to? Like, honestly, down to the people like I go on dates with. Like, when I'm on dates, I'm like asking them 21 questions, because like, I'm Italian. I don't like wasting my time. And like, if this is going to work, I'm going to find out soon. And same thing with me trying to hire people to be my employees. Same thing with me trying to find roommates. Like, I feel like I look at it too much in a business way, but at the same time, I'm just structured like that, where like, I'm not trying to waste my time. Don't come in here and try to waste mine either.
I love that. And I think, I'm not sure who's gotten the credit for it, but it's that preparation is your separation. And I think so many people want to just go to, like I said before, like that 10th year without going through it. And I think the questions you ask now early on are better than waiting and thinking about it down the road. You've done some really interesting content. You've had some really fun videos. I just saw one when you were shooting on a bunch of goalies, and starting from, I forget that kid's name, that really young kid that's a phenom.
Andrew.
Yeah. Is there one video or one thing that you did that's been your all-time favorite?
Ooh, I get this question a lot, and I'm terrible at answering it. I'll be honest. I don't know. I think for me, the coolest videos are the ones that tell stories, right? So some of the ones where we go behind the scenes at some of these colleges and show what their program's about, or we go behind the scenes with this top recruit and show the recruiting process and how they pick their school, or documenting a team through a tournament or a season. Those for me are my favorite, just because there's what I call substance there, right? I think there's a time and a place for more of the YouTubery type content where we're trying these different products or this versus that, and I love those. But I feel for me, the most fulfilling are the ones where I get to tell a story about someone or some team. I don't know. I can't pick one for sure. I always say it's like my kids, but there's 700 of them, and I can't really pick one. But I don't know. I think just the most fulfilling videos are definitely my favorite.
I love that. And for me, it's funny that you say that, because what I gravitate to are the social media posts or YouTube stories or content where there is some substance behind it. And I think a lot of times people today are putting out filtered pictures and edited videos and taking the perfect video or post or story because they want to get a response. But I think there's so much value in people that put out content where it's not just interesting, but it's educational and you can learn from it. And I think that's something that I've enjoyed following some of your stuff, especially some of the cool things where you go behind the scenes and you go to different campuses and universities, because that's what for me is interesting. Because when you turn on ESPN, you see the field, right? Everybody sees the field. Everybody sees, the crowd, obviously the players, coaches, and refs, but it's the behind the scenes in the locker room and the weight room and the things that you being a former college athlete, myself being a former college coach, a lot of people don't get to see some of that stuff. And I think that's some of the stuff that people really want to see, especially if they don't have the opportunity to see it. And I think your content allows people to kind of get that look under the hood to see like what else goes on at this school or this program.
Yeah. And that's my goal, right? We were actually in communication with a couple of schools today to get those going again this fall. And that's the biggest thing is just how can we tell a story of college or university? And it's been great so far. And obviously looking in the future of the content, but all is aligned right now. And I think just to continue to create great content is always and will always be the goal of Mitch Pehlke brand.
So I'm going to ask a not as popular question for some people because they always like to see the highlight reel. Behind the scenes, when the camera's not on, what is the most difficult or challenging part about what it is that you do?
The realm I'm in, I feel like people think content is like the easiest business out there. And it's like, I mean, I've never had a real job. Like this is the only thing I've done. And one of my biggest motivators is my brother that is an investment banker at Wells Fargo, and hearing those hours and hearing his situation, like he obviously, is working in a big corporation, and investment banking is what I call the pipeline for any college lacrosse player. But seeing and hearing those hours from him and my friends, like I never want to have a boss. That's been goal number one for me. And then two is just to report to somebody else. But I would say behind the curtain, when the camera's down, the hardest part about this whole business is just the main thing. And that's how do we continue to create great content and continue to level up. I feel like I'm in a position where I'm a pioneer in the lacrosse space. I'm the biggest, I'm the guy, big fish, small pond. But one of my worries is to be the little fish in this small pond. And I don't want to get there. So a big quote my coach always said at Ohio State was, in life, someone's always chasing you. And I know there's a 8-year-old out there that loves content that in a couple years is going to start making content. Then a couple years after that, going to want to take my spot. And I don't want to let that happen. I just think it just comes down to me just having so much motivation about this thing and just true passion. I really wake up every day and film and really love what I do. But to say when the camera's off that this brain stops is wrong. I'd say the hardest part is really balancing it, right? Going on, dates or going to family dinners or hanging out with the friends. Like it's hard to be present when you are your own boss. And you can obviously relate to this too, because when you're your own boss, you're so passionate about that thing that you can't get it off your mind. You're just continuously thinking of how to improve. And it's hard to be present. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that. And I definitely do too. So I would say that's definitely the biggest struggle with me is when I'm out with the guys having a couple of beers, like I need to be better with being with them instead of thinking about what's tomorrow or what's down the road.
I'm so glad you answered that way. I know of and clearly knew your passion of what you do and why you do it. But I'm really glad that you shared that. And I'm proud of you for going into that details of there's an eight-year-old that's going to be doing some stuff and you don't want him to take your spot. Because I think in life, especially with the social media, there's a lot of people that put out there, like everybody can do it. It's simple. Like you just do it and go out and do it. And in some ways you want to obviously motivate and inspire people that they can do anything they want to. But there's that next step, which is, are you willing to put in the work? And I think from somebody who's looking at your stuff and maybe somebody that looks at my stuff, they see, they see the followers or the views and, I could do it. It's easy. And yes, in some ways they can do it. And I always want to encourage people to do it. But then behind the scenes, it's, are you willing to get up on a Tuesday when you don't want to and you're tired and you have to travel? And one thing that I really respect about you, because I travel with my job to different colleges and universities myself, is it's really hard to be consistent when you're driving or flying or going into a hotel, and then, it's a new place. Am I going to work out at the hotel? Am I going to do this? And there's so many ways where you could have that negotiation with yourself where it's like, all right, I got in late last night, or I'm tired. Like, I'm not going to work out today, or I'm not going to post a video today, or I'm not going to do this content. But that's what has led you and anybody else that's successful in their field or endeavor, is especially on those days when you don't feel like doing it, you still do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what it comes down to. Last fall and even this fall, we're doing college docs again. And that's going to mean, here in a week or two, I'm going to be on the road for the next 60 days trying to hit, 10 college lacrosse schools and creating great content. And that's going to be a lot of hotel Pelotons, hotel dumbbells that go up to 50 pounds, a lot of Hilton breakfasts. And that's a sacrifice, right? And a weird thing about me is whenever I go to create content, the filter is, how are my kids going to react to this? I don't have a girlfriend. I don't have kids right now. I'm a single dude. But for some reason, my kids are always in the forefront of how is my content going to affect them, right? Like, I love what you're doing because it's motivating, right? It's not brain rot content. Like, there's substance, right? And whenever I go into filming my videos, like, what are my kids going to think of this? That's always what goes through my mind. And it's the same thing with working out. Like, what am I going to say to the audience when I'm on the No Quit podcast and I'm hyping you up, I'm hyping the audience up, but I can't work out because I got only 5 to 6 hours of sleep? Like, you're a phony. And I truly believe in that. But again, it just comes down to decision making. And you probably know a famous motivational speaker, Eric Thomas, ET, the hip hop preacher. This is a quick side note, but the greatest experience I had off the lacrosse field at Ohio State as a whole was when ET actually came and spoke to us at Ohio State. We had a connection team, and he came to our film room. I'll never forget September 14th, 2021. He came in and talked to us. And I think I was the most pumped guy in there because this is a guy I listened to a ton as a kid growing up. Whenever I'm in the dirt in my feelings, I'm popping ET on, I'm getting after it. And I'll never forget, he said this. He said this quote to me, or not to me, but to the team. But he said, champions make different types of decisions. And that day, I put it on the back of a cardboard box that was a TV, put it in my room. And just recently, actually, it was my birthday about a month ago, and a special member on my team got me this for my birthday, which is pretty cool. And got this carved out. It just, champions make different types of decisions. And it just goes to show, and in life, everything in life is a decision to what you eat, to what you drink, to how you spend your time with your family and friends. And it's just, are you a champion or are you a loser? And I just try to make everything in life very black and white. And it just made me think of that because I just feel it's super important to make the right decisions. And especially at my age and to your age and to my dad's age, my grandfather's age, like, everything comes down to a decision. And if you can make it as a champion, it's going to affect your life. You can make it as a loser, it's going to affect your life. And you just need to be on the right path.
I love that you shared that, and I get asked all the time, is there something or was there something that got me into this and memorable? And I'm sure you've heard of he's since passed, but the famous speaker Zig Ziglar. I read an autobiography by him that just changed my life. And people can typically pinpoint, obviously you had that experience with ET. I can literally go back to that bookstore where I picked up the autobiography of Zig Ziglar, and I had no idea who he was or what a Zig Ziglar was, but I was just looking around and I read it, and I was like, wow, this is something that I want to do. And it just hits you in that way. I have to ask because was your birthday in August?
Yep.
What day?
The 3rd.
Okay, I'm August 19th. So you're a fellow Leo, right?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not big into like Leo and all that stuff, but I feel like the more and more I grow up, the people that are like me are Leos. And I think that's part of the whole thing. I really don't know much, so I could be butchering it, but like, any person I talk to at a restaurant or that's in the same industry, like, is a Leo.
That's funny. Yeah. So for our listeners out there, if you're a Leo, That is awesome. If you're not, maybe you can go back and try to change your birthday.
Yeah.
You and I spoke offline before we jumped on here, and you have a course coming out. Wanted to definitely give
Yeah.
you an opportunity to tell a little bit about that because I think it's really good what you're doing. And then I have one other follow-up question that I have to ask, but I wanted to give you make sure a chance to talk about your course that's releasing soon.
Yeah. With the business right now, we have these on-site in-person activations, essentially lacrosse camps called the Mitchell Pehlke Lacrosse Experience. And we've felt those have been great, but we can really only do those in the summer. In the fall, kids are playing so many different sports. It's hard, obviously, with school, same thing with winter, same thing with spring. But we've felt essentially, how can we continue to impact the next generation of lacrosse players through a virtual setting? And we've really talked, and we've obviously spent a year doing this, and we're excited to announce to the public within the next couple of weeks the Level Up course, where it's essentially going to be a 30-day live cohort course taught by myself, where campers and players are going to be allowed to obviously sign up, get live calls and talk to me live while learning from great Division I and pro lacrosse players for the month of January. So we're super excited to see how obviously the audience and players react, but more importantly, just continue to impact the next generation of lacrosse players. So we're super excited, and I appreciate you kind of giving me the floor there.
That is awesome. I knew a little bit about what you shared. I did not know about the live experience and interaction, and I think
Yeah.
that for me, I always look at things that I do, and I know you do as well, as how can we make this different? And I don't want to knock anybody out there, but there are a lot of courses that are out there, and most of them are virtual and taped, whether it's a season ago, a couple seasons ago, and there's still fantastic content. But that ability to have interaction is really powerful. Going back to the question that I did want to ask, and it's something that is personal for me and putting you on the spot in a good way. One of the things that I
Yep.
really admire about what you do is sharing the story you did about not wanting that person to take your job. You work incredibly hard, but you have fun when you're doing what you're doing. And I say that because for me, I've gravitated towards people that work incredibly hard but have fun while they're doing it. And I want to be clear, there's a difference of poking fun or making fun of somebody or something. That's a completely different thing. I'm talking about smiling, the way you interact with kids, with adults, people above your age, below your age. And it's something that I try to do myself because in today's day and age, and I think there's this phobia out there where it's like, don't smile when you're working and don't, crack jokes and things. And yes, you don't want to be a comedian and people think that you're just, not taking it serious, but you can work your butt off. You can work incredibly hard, be successful, and still have fun along the way. And I just
Yep.
love that you put those all together. And I think that's something to me that really stood out when I began following you a few years ago.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I think, one of the most challenging parts about this business is you're creating virtual entertainment, and the blessing is you get to see in really infinity amount of people, but the hard part is you really don't get to see face to face kids or people or players. And that's why we started to do the experiences. And when I saw you like being on the grounds doing a live show, being able to interact with the kids and families and everything, like that's the best part. I'm going to see you this weekend up on Long Island at the PLL semifinals at Hofstra, and we're going to do a live Mitchell Pehlke lacrosse show. But on top of that, I'm going to be able to meet fans face to face, shake hands, take pictures, sign autographs, talk to them. Like that's the real thing that brings me joy. And I don't care how famous I get, how many followers, money in my pocket. Like I will be that guy that take pictures and signs autograph with the very last kid. Because for me, in my opinion, like without these kids, my audience, my fans, I wouldn't be here today. So to be able to not give back to them, like I feel like that's a phony move, and that's something that'll always be with me. And that's again what I'm excited for is just the in person activation, be able to see people smile. And the best thing I get, my DMs are in life is when I'm having a bad day, Mitch, like I pop on your videos and it makes me smile. Like that's why I wake up every day and do it.
That is awesome. I think it shows in your stuff, and that's why I wanted to ask that question. I have a couple of questions left, and I don't want to take too much time, but I feel like we could probably talk for another 2 hours here. But fun question we ask each guest is: if I could grant you dinner tonight with any five people that you could level up with, dead or alive, who would your five be?
All right, so I think we're going number one, Frank Sinatra. This guy's blaring through the Italian speakers 24/7. Frankie's definitely at the table. I'm taking LeBron. I know. As a side note, I look up to LeBron, and he's the only guy on this earth I look up to in every facet of life. The way that he was a prodigy and lived up to the name, the way that he had kids at 2021 and has always been a father in his life, actively there being a father. The way he's obviously played in his sport, the way he's done with his brand and his name and the business ventures, like he's a guy I look up to. So Braun's definitely there. I would say Drake's got to be there as well. I'm a huge hip hop guy. I love Drake. One guy I've felt is very interesting recently is Dave Portnoy. I don't know. Do you know who that is?
I do, yeah.
I love Dave because he's a guy that doesn't take shit, just has done it his way. Doesn't care what people say. We'll get in fights. We'll tell the truth, and just loves having those uncomfortable conversations. I love Dave there. And then lastly, let's throw a little curveball in there. I'm going to say my brother there to be able to experience it with me. I think you can't leave the family out. It's the Italian genes, but I would love to have my brother there to have a couple adult beverages with and be able to chat it up with these guys and hopefully come away with a lot of notes.
That'd be awesome. It would have to be a extremely late dinner because your brother has some insane hours being in the investment banking world.
Yes, definitely.
Switching over to our hot seat questions. The only request we have of you is you spit out the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay, let's do it.
I know what genre it is, but last meal, you can pick anything. What do you pick?
Last meal's chicken parm Italian.
Favorite smell?
Ooh, favorite smell. I like a good cinnamon.
Other than lacrosse, second favorite sport?
Golf.
Do you have an all-time favorite team?
I don't know. I'm not a huge sports guy. I think I would just say like any like Jordan era. Like I was watching The Last Dance the other week. Like that stuff continues to fire me up.
Favorite movie?
Goodfellas.
Favorite book?
Favorite book is the Kevin Hart book. I'm blanking on the name. It's the second book I ever read. I don't know. That book kind of changed my life. The way his parents grew him up, the way he lives life. I'm blanking on the name. It's the cover where he's got the dogs with him. Yep. I don't remember.
What is your favorite app you use on your phone?
Favorite app is got to be YouTube, without a doubt.
Do you have a favorite quote?
Yes, champions make different types of decisions. My boy E.T. September 14th, 2021, baby.
I wrote that down in here. That I'm gonna repost that.
You gotta frame that. Get that thing on the mantle in the house.
I will tag you and tag E.T. on that. And then what's that song, no matter whenever you hear it, first thing in the morning, afternoon, or late at night, you just automatically tune it up and just rock out to it?
Oh man, this is gonna be tough.
Don't say like a Frank Sinatra song because you can't.
No, not Frankie. Frankie's like, we're about to put it on after here to get the vibes right on a Friday. What's its song? There's a song by Drake and the Migos. I think it's called like Having My Way.
Okay.
And it just, as soon as you hit play, it starts with the bass and it's just going from there. Any rap song that has like bass, Young Dolph type beat. Oh my God. I don't know what it is. Like I thought I'd grow out of the rap stage, and for some reason, man, just hard hitting hip hop. I can't get out of the Italian skin.
That is awesome. And as you are a content creator, wanted to ask you if there are one or two people that put out inspiring stuff that you follow that maybe you'd like to introduce or potentially reintroduce to our listeners.
Oof, man. Colin and Samir are guys that create content around the creators, and they call it the creator economy. They actually used to be in lacrosse. I got to give a lot of press to them. They've helped me. It's funny, in the lacrosse genre and in social media. And then two, I would say I look at a guy like Danny Duncan, who doesn't make the most PG-13 content. This is a guy that just essentially goofs around with his squad, but a guy that's been on the top of his game for almost 10 plus years now is something that I value because I want that for me and my brand, my business. He's one of those guys that I'm not going to watch when I'm locked in on some work, but when I'm having some food or need to take my mind off work, he's a guy I know I can designate 30 to an hour to take my mind off work and have a great laugh.
I love that, and it goes back to the power of taking a break and having some fun. For our listeners who want to follow you, find out more about you, also find out about your new course, what's the best way for them to do that? And please tell our listeners where they can find all the stuff that you do.
Yeah. I would say the biggest thing is just Mitchell Pehlke on Instagram, weekly on YouTube, daily on Instagram and TikTok. New merchandise and everything, new merchandise, experience, camps, and the course will be on mitchellpehlke.com.
I love that. And last question I have for you, same question I ask everybody, is if you have some parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners today.
Man, I think parting words are, I just hope I get invited back on the pod when Chris has made it. He's moved to Hollywood with the family and is making millions. I hope I can just get the invite back. No, but in all seriousness, though, I think as clever as it is and as many times has been said is just, if you want something in life, you got to go out and get it. And, you got to put in the work, and you obviously can't quit. And I hope that's why you're listening to this podcast. And the biggest thing in life, if you want it, you got to go out and chase that thing. Be a dog, put in the hours, and don't quit, baby. That's why we're all on this thing.
I love it. I know that we will connect again soon. And I just have to say thank you again for jumping on here. I really appreciate it. And for our listeners, if you're not following Mitchell Pehlke, make sure you do so. And I appreciate you, sir. And I know we'll talk again soon. Thank you for listening to episode number 498. I really enjoyed the story Mitch shared about being burnt out and needing a break. The story Mitch shared when Eric Thomas came to visit his college football team was incredibly powerful. With that in mind, I would like to end today's episode with a challenge for you. If there's a different result you want to achieve, you most likely have to make some different decisions. Champions make different types of decisions. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.